Greetings, I am Enraged Eggplant and welcome to Dungeons and GURPS. In this video I'll tell you how I would make D&D-style alchemy in GURPS. While the potions of healing and other elixirs are a staple of D&D games, they mostly are relevant only on low levels, and that's kind of lame, isn't it? D&D also had a weird thing where some alchemical items could be crafted with a simple craft alchemy roll, while most of the actual alchemical potions were only available to spellcasters with the brew potion feat. And there are also magical elixirs that are also potions, but also are wondrous items. Those require the craft wondrous item feat. In Pathfinder we also had the alchemist class. The class is actually pretty fun, but it also adds another category of alchemical items, potions as class features. This separation of alchemical item types makes absolutely no sense to me from the in-universe perspective, and not much sense from the mechanical standpoint. Imagine being a new Pathfinder or D&D player who wants to brew a potion. You probably invested some skill points in craft alchemy, and only then you find out that all the interesting stuff is locked behind feats, spells and or class features. But let's talk about alchemy in GURPS. Is it much better? Well, in some aspects it is. If you use the magic system from GURPS Magic, then you have a predefined list of elixirs. They can have different effects that may or may not be based on a spell, and can have different forms: potions, powders, pastilles, ointments, etc. You even get the costs, difficulty of brewing, costs of the reagents, and brewing time. That's excellent. In addition to that, you have invention rules, plus some interesting articles in Pyramid that expand your options with new elixirs, alchemy-related spells and techniques. And there's no spell or advantage requirement. If you have the alchemy or herb lore skill, you can brew any potion. What's wrong then? The only thing that is wrong to me is the lack of rules for designing custom elixirs and deriving all the other parameters such as cost and brewing time from the effects that you desire, and that's a deal breaker to me. When I was moving away from magic as skills to magic as powers, I had to come up with something. Since everything is based on advantages, the effects of an elixir must be described with advantages. I could do that, but I had no idea on how to derive the crafting parameters from it. Then Pyramid 3.105 came out with the article called Gourmet Alchemy by Michael Kreuter. Basically, it satisfied almost all my needs. It was basing alchemical elixirs on advantages, but their crafting relied on an ability based around modular abilities. Not only that was very costly in terms of character points, but it also didn't give me what I wanted: a way to determine monetary cost, crafting time and reagent pricing. I strongly recommend you to check that article out nonetheless. But in any case, I had to come up with something myself. At first I tried to make alchemical elixirs as enchanted items from sorcery, but not only did this lock alchemy behind the wall that is the enchant spell, it also produced extremely high monetary prices, making elixirs not worth the money. Instead of using that, I decided to return to Metatronic generators from Pyramid 3.46. After starting out the desired effect with advantages, you apply one of the 4 modifiers. Each 4 modifier is a meta enhancement, or in some cases meta limitation, that represent the elixir's form. For example, the potion form looks like this. And as an example, let's build a potion of strength. Sometimes things must be adjusted depending on the underlying advantage. For example, healing is a touch range advantage with no duration, so you kind of have to disassemble the potion meta enhancement and use only the appropriate parts. The dollar cost of a mini-sized Metatronic generator equals to $3,000 times point cost divided by 5, because the item can only be used once. This assumes TL 8. To determine cost at TLs other than TL 8, divide cost by 20,000, the suggested average starting wealth of a TL 8 setting, Then multiply that number by the starting wealth for the campaign's TL. Thus, at TL 3 the potion will cost $30 times point cost. Invention rules from the basic set imply that materials should cost around 20% of the production cost. Glancing at the material prices for elixirs in GURPS Magic, we see that it usually is indeed around that value. Before calculating the brewing time, let us consider potion batching. An alchemist can create a batch of elixirs at the same time, as this significantly reduces the brewing time. For simplicity, the GM can assume that NPC alchemists work in batches of 5. This increases the material cost 5-fold, but the labor cost stays the same. The batches production and retail costs are multiplied by 1.8. How long does the brewing take if we are not using times from GURPS Magic? I decided to reverse engineer it in a way similar to what sorcery does for enchanted items. Let us assume that a tier 3 alchemist has a wage of $2,000. This will allow him to lead a lifestyle somewhere between comfortable and wealthy. Knowing the wage, the labor cost, and the number of workdays in a typical month, that is 22, we can calculate how many elixirs of a particular point cost the alchemist must brew to earn his wage. Using this number, we can deduce how much time the brewing should take. This gives us a linear progression. I feel like powerful elixirs should take longer to brew, so let's add a quadratic progression. This gives us quite similar progression in the middle point cost band, but the weaker elixirs are brewed faster, while stronger ones take a longer time. I would use this quadratic progression, but other GMs are free to use whatever they want. This is one of the few completely arbitrary things that I use just because I want it to be like that. For simplicity, so you don't have to calculate the brewing time every time, you can use the table from the blog post that I will link in the description, and if the point cost falls in the interval between 2 point costs on the table, use the higher one. Thus, for a 23-point potion, use the brewing time for a 25-point potion. Those who prefer the exact numbers can use the following formula. Cost for a elixir made in batches of 5 equals to character point cost times 10.8. Complex alchemical items should also impose a penalty, as every alchemical item is a technique that defaults of the alchemy skill. A penalty of -1 per 10 point of item's point cost sounds reasonable. This penalty can be negated by a formulary, and for strong elixirs it is recommended. This creates additional opportunities for interesting loot for your characters. An alchemist will be excited to find a book that details lost alchemical formulas and gives a bonus to brew certain elixirs. You can also use the invention rules to invent new elixirs. I will provide a table on the screen. Alchemy is not the only way to create elixirs. Herbalists can gather special herbs and fungi to brew remedies. The description of the herb lore skill and the Herbalism section in GURPS Magic suggests making herbal concoctions cost half as much as their alchemical equivalents do, but the discount should be no more than $100. Since an herbalist can gather the materials in the wild with several naturalist roles, for simplicity's sake I suggest simply subtracting the materials cost from the total price before doubling for retail price. To get an elixir's retail price in its herbal form, multiply its retail price by 0.8. This applies both to singular and batched elixirs, as gathering more herbs requires the herbalist to spend more time away from the brewing process. This also makes pricing more simple. Herbalists should be limited by the available herbs in the local area and should not be able to brew unthematic elixirs. For example, a potion of healing is fine, but an ointment that transmutes copper into gold is not. This is entirely up to the GM. Alchemy being a skill and elixirs being techniques opens up some other options that might add some extra flavor to your game. First, you can have alchemical styles, something like martial arts for alchemists. I have written a post on this topic and I will link it in the description. Second, I wrote a post on elixir recycling. Have you ever played Might and Magic 6, 7 or 8? In those games, complex elixirs are made by combining simple elixirs. So I thought, why not write rules for situations where you find some useless potions in a treasure chest and want to use them to brew something useful. So that's what I did, and the link is in the description. Third, this exact framework can be used for poisons. I realized that after I wrote the Metatronic alchemy system. That was a pleasant side effect. Finally, GURPS suggests you to add specializations to the alchemy skill to represent different traditions. This is an excellent way to give your alchemists extra flavor. In my games I use 4 specialties. Organic, this is the normal alchemy. Metallic, this is based on the Ars Metallica article from Pyramid 368. Dark, this is based on the Dark Alchemy article from Pyramid 391. And Psionic, this is based on an article from Dragon magazine. I do not remember the exact issue, but it was one of the latest in the 3.5 edition run. Remember that the term alchemical elixir is a very loose one. It encompasses not only potions and ointments, but also such items as D&D sun rods, for example. I have converted all the alchemical items and poisons from all GURPS books, including Pyramid magazines, and all D&D 3.5 books, excluding Dragon and Dungeon magazines, to the Metatronic alchemy system. I'll link the index in the description. As a final thought, I'll add that this system is not at all perfect. There are some questionable things, so feel free to adjust it. Also, check out the Fusion Alchemy article from Pyramid 4.1. It has everything: rules for designing custom elixirs, different form modifiers and crafting rules. I would definitely simply use that one instead of coming up with my own abomination, but Fusion Alchemy came out years after I developed my Metatronic alchemy system. I have been planning to delve into the Fusion Alchemy into more detail for a long time to compare costs of elixirs made with both systems, but I keep postponing it. I think I'm just subconsciously afraid of finding out that all the work I've done was a waste and that I will have to convert everything to Fusion Alchemy. Maybe recording this video will make me actually move my lazy ass and do something about that. In any case, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.